The autumn sun cast long shadows through the tall windows of Oakwood Public Library as James Chen arranged his teaching materials at his usual corner table. At 42, the former Army Ranger carried himself with the same precise movements that had served him well during his 15 years of military service. His salt and pepper hair was cut short, and his pressed blue button-down shirt bore a small Veterans Support Group logo. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Chen volunteered to teach computer skills to fellow veterans. It was his way of giving back to the community that had supported him after his retirement from active duty. Today's lesson would focus on creating professional emails and building digital resumes, skills his students desperately needed to transition into civilian life. Mrs. Peterson, the head librarian, walked past with a cart of books, offering Chen a warm smile. She appreciated how his presence had transformed the library's veteran outreach program over the past 8 months. "Coffee's fresh in the break room, James," she whispered, knowing his fondness for the library's dark roast. Chen checked his watch. 2:45 p.m. His first student would arrive in 15 minutes. He powered up the library's outdated laptops, each one loaded with basic software that he had personally installed. The familiar routine brought him comfort, reminding him of preparing equipment for military training sessions. The peaceful atmosphere was shattered by the thunderous roar of motorcycle engines. The sound echoed through the library's quiet halls, causing several patrons to look up from their books with annoyed expressions. Chen's military instincts kicked in, and he found himself automatically assessing the situation. Through the library's front windows, he counted 5 motorcycles parking haphazardly across handicapped spots. The bikes were custom choppers, painted with aggressive designs and sporting patches from the notorious local gang, the Steel Vipers. Chen had heard about them from police friends, small-time thugs who had recently started causing trouble in the area. 3 men swaggered through the library's entrance, their heavy boots stomping against the polished floor. Their leather vests were covered in patches and studs, and chains jingled from their belt loops. The tallest one, sporting a scraggly beard and various skull tattoos, knocked books off shelves as he passed. Chen watched as elderly patrons quickly gathered their belongings and hurried toward the exits. A young mother pulled her child closer, abandoning their half-finished puzzle at the children's section. The atmosphere shifted from peaceful to tense in mere moments. Mrs. Peterson emerged from behind her desk, clutching her glasses with trembling hands. "Gentlemen, please keep your voices down. This is a library," she said, her voice wavering but determined. The bearded man turned to her, towering over her small frame. "Oh yeah? And what you gonna do about it, Grandma?" His companions snickered, one of them deliberately kicking over a display of new releases. Chen remained seated, but his body tensed like a coiled spring. He had hoped to avoid conflict in this peaceful place, but as he watched the scene unfold, he knew this Tuesday afternoon was about to become anything but routine. The tension in the library grew thicker as the 3 bikers spread out, their heavy boots echoing through the usually quiet space. The bearded leader, who other gang members called Snake, pulled books from shelves and tossed them carelessly onto the floor. His twisted smile revealed a gold tooth that caught the fluorescent lighting. Near the computer stations, a teenage boy named Tommy hunched over his laptop, trying to appear invisible. He was a regular at the library, often staying late to use the internet for his homework, since his family couldn't afford Wi-Fi at home. Chen had helped him with computer problems several times before. Mrs. Peterson, still shaking but determined, followed the bikers with her cleaning cart, picking up fallen books. "Please, these books belong to everyone in the community," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. Snake turned and knocked the cart over, sending books scattering across the floor like startled birds. "Community?" Snake spat the word out like it was poison. "This ain't your fancy community anymore, lady. Steel Vipers run this neighborhood now." His 2 companions, a skinny man with a snake tattoo coiling up his neck and a muscular guy wearing spiked leather bracelets, laughed and high-fived each other. The skinny one noticed Tommy and nudged his leader. "Hey Snake, check out the nerd with the fancy computer." They surrounded Tommy's table, casting long shadows over his workspace. Tommy's hands began to tremble as he tried to pack up his belongings. "That's a nice laptop you got there, kid," Snake said, placing his dirty hands on the computer's screen. "Bet you could spare it for the less fortunate, right?" His gang members moved to block any escape routes, their chains jingling with each step. Chen watched as tears welled up in Tommy's eyes. The boy had saved for months doing odd jobs to buy that refurbished laptop. Just last week, he'd proudly shown Chen how he'd learned to create his first PowerPoint presentation for school. At the front desk, Mrs. Peterson was quietly speaking into the phone, her voice trembling as she called the police. But Chen knew that even if they responded quickly, it would take at least 10 minutes for them to arrive. A lot could happen in 10 minutes. The muscular biker grabbed Tommy's backpack, dumping its contents onto the floor. Textbooks, notebooks, and pencils scattered everywhere. Snake picked up Tommy's phone, examining it with mock interest before pocketing it. "Consider this a tax for using our territory, kid." Tommy's voice cracked as he spoke. "Please, I need that for school." The bikers laughed harder, and Snake grabbed the front of Tommy's shirt, lifting him slightly off his chair. Chen stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. The sound cut through the tense atmosphere like a knife. All eyes turned to him as he methodically rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms marked with distinctive ranger tattoos. His face remained calm, but his eyes had taken on the sharp focus of a soldier assessing a tactical situation. This was supposed to be his peaceful place, where he helped veterans rebuild their lives. Now these thugs had brought their violence into his sanctuary, threatening a kid who just wanted to learn. Chen took a deep breath, knowing that what happened next would change everything about his quiet Tuesday afternoons at the library. Chen walked toward the group with measured steps, his combat boots making no sound on the library's carpeted floor. 15 years of military training had taught him to move like a shadow when needed. He stopped exactly 10 feet from Snake, maintaining perfect tactical distance. "Let the boy go," Chen said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a seasoned commander. The words weren't loud, but they cut through the tension like a blade. Snake's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the new threat. "Mind your own business, old man," Snake growled, still gripping Tommy's shirt. But something in Chen's stance made him hesitate. The muscular biker with spiked bracelets shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the military bearing in Chen's posture. Chen took another step forward. "I'm giving you one chance to walk away. Just one." His eyes, hard as steel, locked onto Snake's. "Drop the phone, leave the boy's belongings, and exit the library." The words were simple, but the threat behind them was clear as crystal. Snake released Tommy's shirt and turned to face Chen fully. The teenager scrambled away, retreating behind a bookshelf. Snake's companions spread out, attempting to flank Chen, but the former ranger didn't move, didn't even blink. He had faced down insurgents in war zones. 3 bikers in a library didn't make him flinch. "You know what I see?" Snake sneered, pulling himself up to his full height. "I see an old soldier who's forgotten he's not in the army anymore." He reached into his vest pocket, making sure Chen saw the glint of brass knuckles. "This ain't the battlefield, hero." Chen's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "You're right. This is a library." His voice remained eerily calm. "A place of learning. A place of peace. And you're disrupting that peace." The skinny biker with the snake tattoo lunged forward suddenly, throwing a wild punch. Chen didn't even look at him. In one fluid motion, he shifted slightly to the left, letting the punch sail past his ear. The biker's momentum carried him forward, straight into Chen's perfectly positioned elbow. Snake's eyes widened as his friend crumpled to the floor, gasping for air. The muscular biker charged next, his spiked bracelets raised like weapons. Chen moved like water, each motion precise and economical. He caught the biker's arm, turned with the momentum, and used the man's own weight to send him crashing into a book cart. Now it was just Chen and Snake. The library had gone completely silent, the few remaining patrons watching from behind shelves and desks. Mrs. Peterson stood frozen behind her desk, the phone still in her hand, her mouth slightly open. Snake's confident sneer had vanished, replaced by something closer to fear. He had expected an easy target, another civilian to intimidate. Instead, he found himself facing a predator far more dangerous than himself. His brass knuckles suddenly felt very inadequate. Snake pulled out a switchblade, its sharp click echoing through the silent library. The blade caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, dancing with menacing purpose. Chen's expression didn't change. He'd faced worse weapons in darker places. "Last warning," Chen said quietly, shifting his weight almost imperceptibly. Drop it. Snake lunged forward, slashing the knife in a wide arc. Chen moved with the fluid grace of a martial arts master, years of combat training taking over. He stepped inside Snake's reach, grabbing the biker's knife hand at the wrist. In one smooth motion, Chen twisted, using Snake's momentum against him. The knife clattered to the floor as Snake howled in pain. Chen maintained the wrist lock, applying just enough pressure to keep the larger man off balance. Snake tried to throw a punch with his free hand, but Chen blocked it effortlessly, transitioning into a joint lock that forced Snake to his knees. 8 years teaching hand-to-hand combat at Fort Benning. Chen spoke calmly, as if giving one of his computer lessons. Before that, 5 years as a ranger instructor. 3 tours in combat zones. He increased the pressure slightly, making Snake grimace. I could dislocate your shoulder right now, but I won't, because this is a library. The muscular biker was starting to get up from the scattered books, and the skinny one had finally caught his breath. Chen noticed both movements without turning his head. Stay down, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of battlefield authority. Both men froze, recognizing the tone of someone used to being obeyed. Tommy peered out from behind the shelves, his phone still recording everything. Mrs. Peterson had finally gotten through to the police, and sirens could be heard in the distance. But Chen wasn't finished with his lesson. Here's what's going to happen, he said, maintaining the hold on Snake. You're going to apologize to Mrs. Peterson for disrupting her library. You're going to apologize to Tommy for stealing his phone and dumping his backpack. Then you're going to wait quietly for the police to arrive. Snake tried to resist, but Chen applied slightly more pressure to the joint lock. Or, Chen continued, we can do this the hard way, your choice. But remember, I haven't even started using my combat training yet. This is just basic control techniques we teach in week 1. The biker leader's face had gone pale with pain and humiliation. His fearsome reputation was crumbling in front of his gang members, taken apart by a middle-aged veteran in a button-down shirt. The sirens were getting closer, and Snake could feel his options disappearing as quickly as his dignity. Chen maintained the perfect pressure on the hold, neither hurting Snake nor giving him any room to escape. It was the same precision he used when teaching veterans how to use a mouse or navigate a website, patient, controlled, and absolutely effective. The police cruisers pulled up outside the library, their red and blue lights flashing through the tall windows. Officer Sarah Martinez was the first through the door, her hand on her holster, expecting the worst after Mrs. Peterson's panicked call. What she found instead made her stop in her tracks. 3 notorious members of the Steel Vipers were subdued and sitting quietly on the floor. Their leader, Snake, was helping Tommy pick up scattered school supplies, his movements stiff from the joint lock Chen had applied. The skinny biker was straightening knocked-over books, while the muscular one was apologizing to Mrs. Peterson. Chen stood nearby, calmly explaining computer backup strategies to Tommy as if nothing unusual had happened. The only signs of the recent confrontation were some scattered books and a switchblade that lay on the floor, carefully kicked away from everyone's reach. Mr. Chen, Officer Martinez nodded, recognizing him from community meetings. Care to explain what happened here? Mrs. Peterson hurried forward, her glasses slightly askew but her composure restored. These men were causing trouble, but Mr. Chen, he handled it, so professionally. Not a single book was damaged in the confrontation. Tommy held up his phone. I got it all on video, officer. They tried to steal my laptop and phone, but Mr. Chen stopped them. He didn't even hurt them, just made them behave. The teenager's voice held a mix of awe and respect. The security cameras had captured everything as well. Officer Martinez watched the footage on the library's monitor, her eyebrows rising as she saw Chen's efficient handling of the situation. Textbook civilian peacekeeping, she muttered, impressed. You could use this video to train rookies. While other officers handcuffed the bikers, Chen returned to his computer station. His first student of the day, a veteran named Mike, had arrived during the commotion and waited patiently. Sorry for the delay, Chen said, pulling out a chair. Today we're covering email attachments. Mike grinned, having watched the whole scene. Man, that was just like that time in Kandahar, wasn't it? Except with less sand and more books. Chen allowed himself a small smile as he powered up the laptop. The library was already returning to its usual quiet state. Mrs. Peterson was directing volunteers to reshelve books, while Tommy had settled back at his computer, typing with renewed confidence. The afternoon sun was setting when a convoy of motorcycles thundered down the street toward the library. Word had spread quickly through the Steel Vipers about Snake's arrest. Their overall leader, a massive man known as Big Rex, led the group of 15 riders, their engines drowning out the peaceful evening. Inside, Chen was finishing up his last computer lesson of the day when Officer Martinez burst through the door. "They're coming back," she warned, already calling for backup. "Lot more of them this time." Chen saved his students' work and shut down the computer with military precision. "Mrs. Peterson, please lock the back doors and move everyone to the reading room." His voice was calm but commanding. The librarian nodded, efficiently guiding patrons to safety. The motorcycles pulled up outside, surrounding the library's entrance. Big Rex dismounted his custom chopper, his heavy boots crushing the flowers Mrs. Peterson had planted last spring. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, with arms thick as tree trunks and a leather vest stretched across his massive chest. "Where's the guy who took down Snake?" Big Rex's voice boomed through the library's entrance. "Nobody messes with the Steel Vipers without answering to me." Chen walked to the front desk, positioning himself between the gang and the library's patrons. Officer Martinez stood beside him, her hand on her holster, but they both knew backup was still minutes away. Big Rex stomped inside, ducking to clear the doorframe. He stopped short when he saw Chen, his eyes widening in recognition. "Wait, you're Sergeant Chen, from Fort Benning?" Chen nodded once, his posture relaxed but ready. Big Rex's aggressive stance suddenly changed. He removed his sunglasses, revealing a face that had seen its share of battles. "Holy shit," Big Rex breathed. "You taught my unit hand-to-hand combat in 15. Best instructor we ever had." He turned to his confused gang members. "This man trained half the Special Forces units that came through Georgia. He could take down our whole gang without breaking a sweat." The tension in the room shifted as Big Rex extended his hand to Chen. "Sir, if I'd known it was you. Snake's an idiot for causing trouble here. He's out of the Vipers as of now." Chen shook the offered hand firmly. "The library's off limits from now on," he said, his voice carrying the same authority that had commanded respect at Fort Benning. Big Rex nodded immediately. The news of the library incident spread quickly through the veteran community. By the following week, Chen's computer class had doubled in size. Former service members from all branches showed up, some coming from neighboring towns, eager to learn from the instructor who had protected their sacred space. Several veterans volunteered to help Mrs. Peterson with security. Among them was Mike, a former Marine who now kept watch during children's story time, and Sarah, an Air Force veteran who organized a new self-defense class for library staff. The library, once quiet and vulnerable, had become a protected sanctuary. Tommy's video of Chen's intervention went viral in the local community. Parents felt safer sending their kids to study, knowing that trained veterans were keeping watch. The library's daily visitor count tripled, with many young people coming to use the computers under Chen's guidance. The most surprising change came from the Steel Vipers themselves. Big Rex, true to his word, had not only banned his gang from the library grounds but had also started attending Chen's computer classes. "Can't run a business these days without email," he explained gruffly to his surprised gang members. Other bikers followed their leader's example. Chen found himself teaching basic computer skills to men who had once terrorized the neighborhood. They traded their aggressive attitudes for patient learning, their leather vests now sharing space with reading glasses and laptop bags. Mrs. Peterson watched in amazement as former troublemakers began helping elderly patrons carry books to their cars. The library's parking lot, once a place of anxiety, became one of the safest spots in town. Even the local police noted a significant drop in neighborhood incidents. Chen's reputation grew beyond the library walls. Local schools invited him to speak about conflict resolution, and the city council recognized him for his community service. But he remained focused on his original mission, helping veterans transition to civilian life through technology education. 6 months after the incident, the Oakwood Public Library had transformed beyond recognition. The once quiet building now buzzed with positive energy and purpose. Chen's computer class had expanded into 3 separate programs: basic skills for veterans, advanced technology for job seekers, and a special youth mentorship program. Big Rex had become an unexpected success story. After mastering email and basic software, he had modernized his motorcycle repair business and hired several veterans from Chen's class. His shop, now running legitimately, became a model for other reformed gang members seeking honest work. Tommy, the teenager whose laptop had sparked the initial confrontation, now helped Chen teach basic coding to younger students. The incident had inspired him to pursue computer science, and he'd already received early acceptance letters from several universities. The library's transformation caught the attention of national veteran support organizations. They provided funding for new computers and training materials, making the Oakwood Library a model for veteran integration programs across the country. Mrs. Peterson proudly displayed the Community Excellence Award next to the front desk, right above a framed photo of Chen teaching Big Rex how to use spreadsheets. Former Steel Vipers members traded their gang patches for library cards. Several had earned their GEDs through library programs, while others discovered new passions in everything from creative writing to small business management. The parking lot where they once intimidated patrons now hosted monthly community barbecues, with bikers and veterans grilling side by side. Snake, after serving his sentence, returned to make amends. Chen offered him a chance to join the computer classes, and to everyone's surprise, he excelled at graphic design. His first legitimate job was redesigning the library's website, replacing the outdated interface with a modern, user-friendly design. On quiet afternoons, Chen would sometimes pause his teaching to watch the diverse group of people sharing the library space. Veterans helping children with homework, former gang members discussing business plans, elderly patrons feeling safe enough to browse late into the evening. The library had become more than a building of books. It was a testament to the power of second chances and the strength of community. As Chen prepared for another day of classes, he smiled at the small plaque Mrs. Peterson had placed on his regular table. It read, "Every great change begins with a single act of courage." Below these words, someone had taped a small note in Tommy's handwriting. And sometimes, it begins in a library.